nobody wants to hear certain words. Especially a lawyer doesn't want to hear certain words. But I heard those words some years ago. Sitting in the office of the Clerk of Superior Court here in Cabarrus County, the Clerk of Court looked at a will, looked up at me and said, "Mr. Medlin, this will has failed. It cannot be probated. It's failed. Doesn't meet North Carolina law." I've been given permission by a Mr. Alfred Borg to tell the story, because this actually happened to him some years ago. Mr. and Ms. Borg moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. They had gone to a New Jersey lawyer up there and had an excellent will drawn according to New Jersey statutes. And came down here, they found a good home and stayed put, but they never went to a North Carolina lawyer to have a new will drawn up. Mrs. Borg died. When I took her will to the Clerk of Court, drawn in New Jersey, the Clerk of Court tried mightily to work with me to get that will probated under the self-proving will statute, but we were unable to do so. Now, had that will failed completely and we never found a way to probate it, Mr. Borg would have lost a huge amount of the money in his family, and he needed all that money to live as a retired man. We spent the next months making hundreds of phone calls, working a lot of detective work time, trying to find the witnesses that witnessed that New Jersey will many, many years ago. Nobody knew where they were. Then we started just calling at random to law offices in New Jersey. We got lucky and we found the witnesses after a lot of effort. But again, that's the sort of thing that can happen when someone is unaware of the laws of the state where they live. Had Mr. Borg not gotten that money, had the will failed, he would have been in a terrible condition for his financial future. Now folks, I've come to talk with you today about estate planning. And a lot of what I do is to try to make sure that people's futures really are more predictable. Mr. and Ms. Borg could never have imagined that that event would happen to them and that it would be such a near tragedy. But I think it's important that we all think about our legal papers and think about our own estate planning. I used to come to groups like this and I would ask, who has a will? Sometimes half the group would hold up a hand. I don't even ask the question anymore. I just go ahead and tell everybody, everyone here has a will. Some folks give me those big eyes. But let me assure you, you have a will, even if you've never been to a law office and never made a will, because the state of North Carolina has drawn one for you if you never wrote it down and never went to a law office. But I'll tell you something else, when the government makes your will for you, it's never what you wanted. Absolutely impossible. Because the state of North Carolina draws that will in very, very broad terms so that it covers a lot of circumstances, none of them yours. And that's why I like to tell folks, really need to go see a lawyer that you know, someone you trust, to make up that estate plan that's yours and covers your individual circumstances. See, all of us have unique situations in our families. No two situations are the same. In fact, as you look around the room, you all kind of know each other's families. You know right now that no two situations are really ever the same. For instance, a lot of people will try to make a will off of maybe an internet website. And I've been on many, many internet websites to look at those wills. And folks, they're almost laughable. They're so bad and they're so out of touch with what we do here in this state. Because they're made to be cheap and quick and made to make money for somebody sitting in an office, sometimes far, far away in another continent. That internet will is taking your square peg of a financial situation and pounding it very hard into the round hole of a form that's made to serve everybody. However, I will tell you this. In a way, I love internet wills because I make a lot of money off of internet wills, making big messes of estates, and then I get paid a lot of money to straighten them out. Still, I feel like I'm serving the public better. I'm serving all of you to tell you an internet will is just about guaranteed not to be the answer to your estate planning needs. Form books also try to meet folks' needs, but you have just about the same problem there. They're written to serve everybody all at one time, and they really don't meet the individual needs of just about any family you find. You really need to go to a lawyer somewhere, someone you know, someone you trust. Let them know your individual circumstances and draft your estate plan such that it covers your particular needs, because they are different for everybody. For instance, a lot of families have true heirlooms, things that are valuable to your family and tell the story of your family. You want those heirlooms to pass as you decide. You see, there are some great myths out there on the street today, one of them being that husband and wife together, if one of them dies, while the other inherits everything. Not the case in North Carolina without a will. Everybody thinks that's the way it works, but it's not. Another great myth is if you have children and you die without a will, your children take everything of yours. Not the case in North Carolina. Now that's the folk law, but that's not the real law. And we have to be very, very careful to live our lives according to what's the actual law and make ourselves aware and be able to take care of our own families and our own individual situations. Part of what breaks my heart sometimes when I see people with wills that fail is that they've also had children or others of great importance to them, and now there's nothing in their paperwork to take care of those children. I know when I had little tiny children, I was very careful to designate who would be the guardians of my children, because that was something I wanted to decide, not the state of North Carolina, not the court system. That was important to me. It's important to most people with children. I also wanted to be sure that if I died, my wife died while we had small children, all of our estate, all of our insurance money, all those assets would go into a trust to take care of those children's financial needs and shepherd that money forward so that there would be enough to educate them and take care of them going forward. What I'm telling you is take this matter real seriously, because when there's no will, or when there's a will that fails, and then they can fail very easily in this state if they don't comply with the law, it's easy to wind up in a very expensive courtroom. There's nothing I try to do any harder than to keep people out of the very expensive courtroom. I like to tell folks, pay a little money now. Get your estate plan right. Don't trust chance in the future. Everybody here remember the old Fram oil filter commercial? Television years ago. The salesman would talk about the Fram oil filter, $7. The broken engine, $700. And he'd say, you can pay me now or pay me later. Well, I never have forgotten that commercial. He told a good story. That usually it is an awful lot cheaper to make a plan now and to make sure it's the right plan. I will caution you on a couple of quick things. One is the handwritten will. I'm tempted to say again that I love handwritten wills, because over the past few years I've made an awful lot of money off of handwritten wills failing. Because in North Carolina, your handwritten will, just like an internet will, just like a form book will, is given precise legal meaning with all the words. In other words, every word that goes in there is given the meaning the court system gives it. And most of us don't know how to use that wording precisely enough to make the will the right way. I also like to tell folks that often they're afraid of things that just aren't a problem anymore. For instance, so many people come to see me and they're just so frightened that they're going to lose most of their estate to estate taxes, death taxes. Folks, the government's largely gotten out of the estate tax business. North Carolina has no estate tax anymore. The federal government will let you pass millions of dollars estate tax free. So folks are scared of something that's not going to hurt them in the large part, and yet they will ignore basic sorts of matters and not handle them that are usually pretty cheap to handle. So that's the kind of thing that I urge upon you, is to find what really is needed in your individual circumstance and find out what helps you and your family. Now, when I'm done, and I'll be done in just a few minutes, certainly want to be giving you a little bit of time for questions, and Johnny will let us know when we have to wrap up today. But I do want to mention a couple of things that can help out a great deal in any family situation. I hope that death is a long way off for all of us. But I do know that for most of us, there's going to be some sort of time of illness, the results of a bad car crash, or some reason why we can't do our own business ourselves. In that circumstance, I really want people to have a business power of attorney so that somebody can sign your name and do your business for you if you're not able to do it yourself. Again, that's the sort of paper that's quick and easy to make up. You decide who will handle your business for you if you're not able to do it yourself. Folks, it can be a major matter. We found out right after Hurricane Hugo in particular, sometimes people had trees on their houses and had to deal with the legal system, deal with insurance claims, but somebody in the family was injured or too ill to sign their own name. That's when that power of attorney was so important, and really had to use a lot of them around the community back then. That's a business power of attorney. And again, you decide who handles your business rather than having to go to the court system, the very expensive court system, and do something like a guardianship, which is very costly, very time-consuming to handle. Let's do it the simple way. Get with your lawyer and do it in such an easy manner. Something else that's pretty important is a health care power of attorney. I expect you've heard Sis back here talk about health care powers of attorney before. But again, so often we don't know when we're going to be in a situation where we're ill and can't make a decision for ourselves. Well, you decide who's going to be making those medical decisions for you in the future. I expect everybody here remembers that case some years ago down in Florida of Terry Schiavo. Just about impossible for anybody to forget that case. Very young lady with brain damage, lay in a coma for a very long time. Her husband on one side of the legal issue, her parents on the other, and they litigated for years. The case finally wound up in the U.S. Congress. And imagine the money and the heartache that could have been prevented with something so simple as a medical power of attorney. Very inexpensive and very easy way to prevent something like that from happening. The last thing I'll mention to you is a living will. Technically, it's a declaration of a desire for a natural death. This means that it doesn't mean you're just very ill. It means that if you're terminally ill, you will die from what illness you have right then. You tell the medical community, stop all heroic means to keep me alive. Just let me die. Again, that living will is used in very limited circumstances. But that's something you need to be deciding, not leaving up to chance or leaving up to somebody that you don't know to make that decision for you. All these matters that we talk about are the sorts of things where I'm trying to get you to avoid expensive results, handle matters in cheap ways now and easier ways right now. See, all of us leave a legacy. All of us will depart here someday. And when we do, people are going to talk about what we did and how we conducted ourselves during our lives. Well, quite frankly, when you're at your own funeral, no one is going to talk about how much clothing you owned, how big your house was, how fast your car could go from 0 to 60 miles an hour. But you know, they are going to talk about whether you handled business. They are going to talk about whether you made it easy for those who stayed behind you, whether you handled your own responsibilities in a responsible manner. No one's going to say, boy, oh boy, he had the biggest, you fill in the blank. No one says that. But they all talk about when someone cares for their family and cares for those they loved and that loved them. That is what we're talking about today, is handling your business and making it easy for those that stay behind. Now, folks, anytime I come to a group like this, I want to make sure you understand it's an honor to get to talk to you. Of course, I know a lot of you here, and it has been my pleasure to get to talk with you. I want to know now what's on your minds. What would you want to ask me? Because usually that's where I find out what's really on your mind. And always enjoy when folks ask questions of me at a talk like this. But no matter what, please understand, it was a real pleasure to get to chat with you today.